Okay, trustees, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. Go for it.
Yeah. All right. I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular trustee meeting of July 10th, 2023. And I'd like to open with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Allison, can you do roll call, please?
Sure. John Aldred.
Here.
Francis Box.
Here.
David Cataletto.
Here.
Ben Dollinger.
Here.
Tim Garneau. Jim Grimes.
Yes.
Susan McGraw-Hebert.
Here.
Mike Martinson. Bill Taylor.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. We'll start with public comment. Let's see, we have Peter Mendelman listed, but I don't see him in the audience.
Well, Ron is here to talk about the same, well, an aspect of the same project.
Okay. You want to fill in for Peter then? Okay.
Well, why don't I just lay the groundwork here? Peter and his wife at 60 Harborview Lane are applying for a bulkhead rebuild and asking for an expedited decision from all the agencies. It's a wooden bulkhead, it's fairly old. They want to remove and replace it, elevate it 1 foot to reach the level of the harbor marina bulkhead, which is attached to it in effect. So it's a fairly straightforward rebuild of an existing bulkhead that's needs rebuilding. It's failing. It's got wooden slats. It's going to be replaced with non-treated hardwood piles and timbers and vinyl sheeting. Ron here with Cornell and David Bay's company has been talking to Peter and Natural Resources about putting a permeably reactive barrier on Peter's property behind the bulkhead. So I guess maybe we could talk about that. Sure. And sort of the history of it and
Let's go.
So,
Ron, can you introduce yourself, please?
sure. Ron Paulson. I'm from Clear Bays. I'm under contract with Cornell. We've been doing these kind of surveys offshore of many embayments throughout East Hampton town for the last 5 years. And as part of the effort for 3 Mile Harbor, and it was actually part of the Mekong Estuary, we did a survey 2 years ago of different areas of the harbor. And we looked offshore at the surface water and at where the groundwater discharges. And the area by Peter Mendelton's marina there was very high in nitrogen coming through. So we did some follow-up survey work in the spring and right on outside of his property, outside of the old bulkhead. And we found really high groundwater discharge rates with a lot of nitrogen. And my colleague, Molly Graffin, who's the geochemist at Cornell, she estimated that 500 pounds of nitrogen per year come through that section where the old bulkhead now, because it's deteriorated, allows the groundwater to come through. That's extremely high. The flow rates were very high. So it really became obvious to us that it was an ideal place to do a PRB behind a bulkhead like we did in Hampton Bays and proposing to do in other areas. And because there's a focal point of groundwater there, and we can put a treatment behind it, thought it was a good opportunity. We talked to Natural Resource, Kim Shaw, Melissa Winslow, they're supportive of it as far as that portion of the bulkhead treatment. The bulkhead itself is still responsibility of the property owner. It's not what the funding we would seek for the PRB would be separate from that. And we would, normally what we do is we get a contract with, in this case, Peter Mendelman, if he's willing to allow us to do it, and Cornell would be the lead on it for making sure it's designed and installed through the CPF funding process. So that's what we're hoping to do. It's an ideal location. It could remove quite a bit of nitrogen. It's a focal point. So it ticked off all of the things we look for when we want to do these kind of more, I wouldn't say aggressive, but more appropriate remediation. And it's an opportunity because the bulkhead needs to be replaced, so it's an ideal time to do it.
Hey, Ron, would you happen to know, I know Peter had some permits open for some maintenance work. Is this within the threshold, within the scope of those permits that he's already sitting on?
On what, though? On what
He had some,
That's all.
I'm not sure.
This is a residential lot adjacent to Harbor Marina.
Okay.
And my understanding is it's zoned in such a way that the slips can be leased off the bulkhead, and they do now and have leased slips.
He
on.
probably doesn't. He's probably not sitting on permits. I mean, I don't see a reason why we would oppose it. I think we probably would want to support something like this.
I wasn't gonna ask you to vote tonight. This is, just came up. I just wanted to really introduce the board to all this. There's one thing that, there's a timing issue where Ron and Molly are gonna apply to CPF funding to do this. That doesn't even begin until August. Peter wants to get going this fall as soon as he can. The funding is, if it's approved, won't be approved till late August, September. So there may be a situation where if all this works out and everybody's in agreement and all these contracts and agreements can be understood and signed off on by everybody, the bulkhead may have to go in before the PRB
I would
can.
think it would have to, yeah.
And that's part of what I think Peter and Ron have to sort of work out. If that's the case, what will be required is basically perforations in the sheeting below grade in order for the groundwater to still be able to reach through the PRB and get out.
No, is that something that can be done post-construction? No,
No, it is. There's, in Hampton Bay,
because you're going to be going to the DEC, not just for a typical bulkhead replacement, with some modification of that for this PRB. Probably beneficial thing is to get some letters of support from our board, from Kim Shaw, because you're gonna have to get DEC permits on this. You're gonna have to get natural resources special permits, and you may as well start doing the legwork on that sooner than later.
Yeah, I think that the DEC might be under some kind of a general permit, some kind of a general approval. Not sure they have to go through
Hampton Bay is, they have to, because it was behind the bulkhead, and the bulkhead already had a permit.
Yeah, he's going to apply, from what I understand. It's too bad Peter's not here. To from scratch to this permit.
Well, he's applying for it. And I think he's hoping to get an administrative approval from the
That's for his property. Joan and I went out and looked at this, and it looks like something we should do. Is the other neighbor gonna be involved in this now?
Yeah, well, there's a neighbor to the north that we also met with when we met with Peter and Ron, who's also interested in rebuilding the bulkhead that they have. They're not as advanced in the process as Peter.
Okay.
Right. Just to the north of the red tieback. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to introduce the idea, the board understanding, and what we would vote on would be approving Peter's bulkhead rebuild this week. I just talked to Chris about it, and I sit on the technical advisory committee. I would be voting on whether or not to recommend this project, so I'll feel comfortable myself on any vote.
With Peter replacing the bulkhead is kind of a no-brainer. It's just something we should approve.
And I think, we can put this up for a vote next meeting, and, I thought Peter was gonna come tonight, maybe he wasn't able to, but might be able to come next week and meeting and talk about it a little more, see better understanding of what his other permits might entail. That's an issue.
I think we can coordinate it, even though the permit, like you mentioned, there's certain things in the bulkhead that would have to be installed as the bulkhead is being put in, but we can put the PRB in later, different techniques to do that. Ideally, you'd like to do it all at once, but there are other methods that we actually auger in the wood chip barriers behind it so we don't disturb anything, dead men or all the other things that can come into play, and those have been very effective too. So we're willing to work with a situation, maybe the timing could work out if it's later in the winter, but there are, it's not impossible, it's reasonable to do it, provided certain things are done to the bulkhead.
Are you considering the neighboring property also?
We were there with John and Kim Shore were there. We talked to that
Yeah, I mean, but
homeowner.
that would be someplace you would want to put the barrier also,
Yeah.
extend it that
It's a
forward.
really ideal location for it. And they could work together. Ideally, you could try to figure out how to design it together, even though different parts would go in at different times.
Now, it'd be nice if the PRB is done as part of the backfill on the bulk.
I think it looks like timing wise, these two properties are on different schedules. So I think Peter's interested in getting this done soon, and the other property hasn't really even come up with a design of their bulkhead, how they want to handle it yet. So,
Yeah, the other property might have some marsh issues too, right?
well, it's an older bulkhead. It's kind of made of logs driven into the bottom, to the mud. There's another section that's a little bit more of a retaining wall than an actual bulkhead. So I have a feeling that's going to raise it to a different level of permitting from the state and the town.
Yeah, Peters is cut and dried. It's a bulkhead replacement. It's gonna be a foot higher. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, and then we have Robert Vassiluth, founder of Save Environment Eelgrass Project.
Yes, hi. I asked him to come in and he's going to come in by phone. Matt, do you have him on the line?
I do have one caller waiting. Lisa, I believe, is the person. And I will let them in.
Yes, he's here to speak about the eelgrass project that he came
Okay.
to see us in the spring.
Okay.
But I just want to let you know, as long as we're on, we've had a lot of cracking up and losing of the sound. And I did try to reach.
Susan, I do know.
Okay, all right.
All right, can I unmute this caller?
Yes, please, thank you.
Okay. Unmuting last four digits. 6089. You are live.
Hello? Can you introduce yourself, please?
Hello.
Rob,
Yes.
Rob,
I'm
you're on.
unmuted. Hi, I'm Rob Bowser. Thanks for having me tonight. I just wanted to give updates on the eelgrass project that I'm doing with your support and approval. I'm collecting eelgrass seeds, and I'm looking to collect eelgrass seeds with volunteers this week off the north shore of Cedar Point State Park. And I just want to make sure everything's okay and that you're all right with me doing that work. And if you need me to sign any waivers for any reason, I'm willing to do that.
I had suggested to Robert, because he wants to bring volunteers to help him in the waters, that he would need a waiver. So I sent him our East Hampton Town waivers so that he could review them. But I also asked him to call Kim Shaw, and I believe you had a conversation with Kim as well, Robert?
Not that I recall.
Okay, she said she had I spoke to her today. And also Barley is away, apparently on vacation. I included him in the email to ask if he would send those maps. Allison, do you have the maps? And then we can show you where, there were 3 locations that Robert first spoke to me about on Friday, and now he's narrowed it down to 1, which is Cedar Point Park. But I just wanted to run this by everybody here and keep you updated and posted as to what he's about to do. How many volunteers do you have, Robert?
I have like a half a dozen that are able to go into the water. I only have 3 that could see when they get down there with their eyes. So, I'm trying to collect about 1 million seeds this year from all over Long Island. I started in the Great South Bay a month ago, and that expired because the seeds released. And it's hard to pick the seeds up from the ground, so I want to get them when they're on there, what they call spats. They're still growing on the plant. And I picked just a growing reproductive shoot, not all the eelgrass. I just pick a reproductive shoot that contains all the seeds. And I just take them and I put them in a bag, and I bring them back to a fresh saltwater tank, a fresh flowing saltwater tank. And with doing that, I preserve the seeds, and then I could ready them to work with them to do my process, which is I glue the seeds to live hatchery clamps from New York State, and I just drop them back in the water, and I effectively, repopulate the shellfish population and the eelgrass that are missing. And that's what I've been doing. And this process right now is critical, like these seeds, because there's only a certain amount of time. You got a 2-week window in each area surrounding Long Island. So it's a small amount of volunteers. I'm asking for more volunteers and to give my information freely to anyone who's willing and knowledgeable of snorkeling to collect eelgrass seeds. And if there's any scuba divers that are available, maybe in the area, that they could help with this effort. And with this effort, if we collect enough seeds, we can repopulate eelgrass in a trial later this fall in Nepog Harbor. And it will be a small plot, and it will be a 2-acre plot maybe, or a 1-acre plot in a permitted area. And
what harbor?
From there, we got to wait.
On that Peak Harbor?
Cedar Point.
No. Okay, that Peak Harbor?
Yeah, Allison, do you have the map that you can pop up and that he
Hey,
did?
Robert, the only comment I have, do you have state permits on this? Because that's not our Cedar Point's not our waters. I believe.
Yes, I told him it's Suffolk County.
State, it's New York State.
They're viable seeds. far as I know, there are no laws of harvesting eelgrass seeds. I don't think anyone really does it. I'm not harming the eelgrass beds. And 1 acre of eelgrass, 4 acre, like you might have it off of Cedar Point, could hold 10 million seeds. I might be able to collect 100,000 with a good effort of a bunch of volunteers. So, not doing any damage to the existing eelgrass, but it's all in an effort to make a plot where there is eelgrass lost and try and bring it back and see how that goes. And that's all it is. It's an experiment. It's something as well done in Smith Bay that's been permitted by the DEC. Is more to your question. Is what you're looking for. Is I've done this work before with approval from the DEC on permitted on bottom aquaculture permits.
But Robert, we can't give you permission to do work on state property. We don't have that jurisdiction.
Yeah, but he's saying it's not, he
I'm
can
not
do it.
asking for it.
Yeah, but there's nothing for us to tell
I'm
them.
not asking for permission.
Yeah,
I'm just
We have
giving a
no-
heads up that I'm doing this work.
We're kind of done.
yeah, we have no
Yeah,
objection.
originally on Friday, we had a discussion that Rob wanted to harvest the seed from various different locations in East Hampton. And yes, today when we spoke, he said it was Cedar Point, but there were locations in East Hampton and Montauk that he was interested in harvesting the seedlings.
That's
So
correct.
I suggested that he come to the meeting and send us the maps dotted where the areas were that he wanted to be in our waters. So today it's just the area at Cedar Point, but I still don't see the map up there. I don't know if it's,
I don't know. As you guys were all
We
talking.
don't need the map.
Yeah, I think my feeling is, we are supportive of this concept and your work. However, I just like to reiterate, they're not our waters, they're state waters. And I'm not aware of the requirements for collecting eelgrass seed. We don't have any. We would probably want to know about it if somebody were doing it in our waters and weigh in on it.
well, as I said, this was originally also, Napeag was an area that Rob was interested in doing the same work. But today,
A lot of eelgrass.
decided only Cedar Point.
So-
I thought it was good for him to come and update us so that, because we had approved of his work going forward with Barley, also endorsing his project. So I wanted you to all have an update and let you know what Robert was going to be doing.
Yeah, it sounds great, and we look forward to hearing from you in the fall when you're gonna put those seeds in. I might have some volunteers for you in
Yeah,
the
it's
fall,
gonna be-
some middle schoolers.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. I really think we'll have really great results, and it takes a long time, and we won't see the results until this time next year. So the seed collection goes on now, and then over the next another couple months, we process those seeds where we clean them up and get off all the rack, as we call it, of plant tissue, and just get it down to seeds. And then at that point, we will use New York hatchery clams from the East Hampton hatchery and put them into permanent areas where you already put them, but just with seeds attached to them. And when you get the permit amended with the DEC this month, with an amended permit for gluing seeds to clams, which is something the DEC did with me and Cornell Cooperative Extension and Good Sounds last year in Smithtown Bay. And that's all they ask. The DEC, all their concern is right now is they just want to know that I'm gluing seeds to clams and putting them in a permanent area, and they amend that permit to do that. That's the most important information I wanted to relate tonight. Is it's about permitting, and we're using clams that are going into the water already in a permitted area in the town of East Hampton, and we're just going to be amending it to put seeds on with this glue that I use onto clams, and that's a hurdle in doing this process, and that is yet to come. But we're working on it with Steve Shop from Cornell Cooperative Extension Southold and Barley Duns to get that amended.
Anybody have any questions?
I just like to say that, East Hampton Shellfish Hatchery that seeds clams in East Hampton waters doesn't require any state permit to do it. But I think if I'm hearing you correctly, you have permits in other places to seed clams with these eelgrass seeds attached, and you're interested in amending that to allow that to happen in East Hampton as well, which I think, we support this project in East Hampton, in trustee waters. So, I guess if you need any letter of support for the DEC to give you this permission to glue eelgrass seeds onto seed clams, we could do that at the time.
That's a green light, and I thank you for understanding and comprehending exactly what needs to be done, and I thank you for helping support that.
And Robert, stay in touch with me, because come the fall, I'd like to talk to you about volunteering as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a long process. It takes a while, but right now the seed process, collecting seeds and storing them, and then using the clams with the seeds and the glue. And that will be around the end of September, October.
Okay.
And I like to have them all in the water before the water gets too cold, before 55 degrees. So that would be the end of November, the latest.
Mm-hmm. It's on schedule with the oysters.
And then it's a 6-month wait.
Slow down for a while.
Okay. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you very much tonight.
All right. Talk to you soon. Thanks for coming in, talking.
All right, move on to new business.
Bye-bye.
Slow down for wildlife, turtle and deer fatalities. Who brought that up? Susan?
I'm not sure, but I will tell you that I was in touch with Turtle Rescue of the Hamptons. Apparently last weekend there was a call into our office about 2 turtles that had been hit by a car on Mile Hill Road. So Paul and I drove up there to see, and we had 5 signs posted on either side and 2 that were nailed to trees. So I spoke to Lisa at Turtle Rescue of the Hamptons, and David came and collected 6 signs. I have 6 signs. We're going to go around in Northwest and add a couple more where there are wetlands. So we're asking people to please slow down. I know that the group for wildlife, East Hampton Group for Wildlife, they made up yellow signs that said slow down, protect our wildlife. So if people are listening this evening, please make sure that if you do see a turtle and it's safe to stop, you pick it up and you put it in the direction of where it's going, which usually is toward water. And if you see an injured turtle, often they are not dead, and you should call Turtle Rescue of the Hamptons. I posted on our website, ehtrustees.com, Turtle Rescue of the Hamptons telephone number, and that's the best place to call because they'll pick up right away. And so if you do see an injured turtle, don't think that it is dead. But please slow down and drive carefully. They are on the move on our roadways. And we do have the metal signs from SOFO that Jim, you were able to procure from SOFO, and we have those up where we can as well. And that's it. I didn't put this on here, but whoever did, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Susan. Old business, duck blind removal updates.
I didn't put that on.
Allison, I think you might have put it on.
That might have been last week, but either way.
We talked about it last.
Yeah, that
meeting,
might
yeah.
have just been an accidental leftover, but there were also 2 additional lines in Accabonac Harbor, which John had noticed. We reached out to the owners, called them. One of them has since responded and taken care of the blind, moved it back up to the upland, and then, but that's it. So we're still waiting on response from the other.
Thanks, Allison.
Lions Head Beach Association Pond blue-green algae update.
Apparently in the last round of testing, the blue-green algae has increased in virulence. Now it's, I think the last time I talked about this, it was 4 times the state standard. And this last test showed it to be 24 times the state standard.
Wow.
So that's the latest information I have. I think the association had a meeting and was talking about this and talking about what they might be able to do. I gave them some suggestions, road runoff remediation, neighboring properties, fertilization, elimination. I'm still not, I've looked at this pond a couple of times and I see wildlife active in it. There are birds active in it. So I'm not sure if the whole pond is really affected to this degree, or maybe where they're taking the sample is, particularly high. I kind of suspect that might be they're wading into shallow areas at the edge, and that might be, the levels of blue-green algae may be a lot higher there than they are in the.
Yeah, I was there last week with Bruce checking on Phragmites, and it was almost completely covered, the pond, and a homeowner there was really upset. She said, this is the worst it's ever been.
Okay, keep in mind, the pond being covered, that's not blue-green algae. That's Cladophyra.
Okay.
That's green algae. But if you've got a lot of that, there's a good chance that you're getting the blue-green algae along with it.
Well, we're definitely getting blue-green algae.
But what you're looking at is not blue-green algae.
I was there 2 years ago with Bruce, and it was awesome. It was healthy and clean, and
What time of the year was it?
it's in the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That time, all the Cladophyra settled down to the bottom.
Yeah, that will die off and drop down. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Mosquito lobby survey in Accabonac Harbor.
Yeah, we went out again last week, Monday, full moon count. And we did find larvae. Most of it was small, and it was inconsistent. I mean, there were pools of water that showed no larvae at all, and then there were some pools that had very, very high counts, and sometimes they were right next to each other. So it's a little confusing as to why that was like that, but had enough high counts that the county felt that spraying was warranted, especially, I think, since it was July 4th weekend.
Yeah, they did spray, last Friday, they did spray the south end of that Cape Harbor.
Yeah. Sometimes well, since those are not checked by us on a regular basis, I think they'll get more regular spraying in Napeague and Cedar Point, other places in East Hampton than Accabonac will. So, but this time Accabonac was sprayed as well as Napeague and Cedar Point, and Beach Hampton, I think, is the other one they do.
So were they spraying BT or were they spraying?
What they spray is, it's granulated. It's a combination of BT and methoprene granules that drop into the marsh. It's not an aerosol. So I don't think they have, bags of BT and bags of methabrine. I think they have a mixture. So they probably could have just used BT this cycle because almost everything that was found was very small. BT will only act on stage 1 and 2 larvae. If it goes to stage 3 and 4 larvae, that the BT doesn't really is effective.
I sent out an article I posted about New York State banning neonicotinoids for various different purposes. I hope that you all take notice because we wrote a letter about 2 years ago in support of that. So I'm very happy to say that it was approved. It comes out as Governor Hochul's announcement.
All right.
Good.
Does anybody have anything under committee reports? No.
I just have a question. I don't know if it's committee report, but you talked to me about the county asking for dredging preferences. I think you talked to Natural Resources about it.
Spoke to Kim about it.
Has that been submitted? Do you know?
I'm assuming it was. I think she was already late with it. So.
Well, the reason is on another matter, I talked to Tim Treadwell, the harbor master, today, and I just happened to ask him about the shoaling that was reported in the Accabonac Inlet out in the bay, not necessarily inside the harbor, but just outside the harbor in the bay. Last year, we had somebody inquire about it, and I asked him whatever came of that, and he said that they had gone out there and done soundings, and I think submitted them to Natural Resources, and there were some shoal spots that were quite shallow. So the reports we had from the boater seemed accurate. He said that they don't buoy the entrance to that harbor, to Accabonac anymore, because the channel has sort of, meandered a bit, and there's no clear place to buoy. You have to have local knowledge to get in and out of there. And when I talked to you, well, they may all need dredging, and we have to the priorities go to one harbor a year. So Tim also said that he got a report and hasn't checked it out yet, but that there's some shoaling in the 3 Mile Harbor Inlet.
Yeah, that was brought up during the conversation.
I just wondered if that had been submitted to the county.
I'm pretty sure it has, but we can confirm it. All right, move on to administrative. Payment of the bills. East Hampton Star, $63.50 for help wanted with pump out boat. East Hampton Marina, $259.64 for an oil change. $160.50 for fuel, $165.90 for fuel. Optimum, $146.97. Seacoast Marina, $67.29. Do you have a motion to pay the bills?
Motion to pay the bills.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Did we ever get any response on the help wanted ad?
Yeah, no, we're all set.
Yeah.
We actually, we had
Started this week?
we had two or three applicants. There, Doug handled the interviews, and Selma, an individual, is filling in for days off. And things are moving pretty good this year. Yeah.
Busy 4th of July.
It's busy. I'll tell you what, it wasn't as busy as a couple of years ago. The whole season's been a little slow all over.
Yeah, things going back down to pre-COVID.
whether it's pre-COVID, I think early season the temperatures were cool. People weren't using their boats. There was a lot of boats still out of the water. Now that the temperature's hot, boats are in the water. But doesn't seem like the volume that we had in the last few years.
All right, and lastly, we have minutes from the meeting of June 26th. Anybody have a chance to look at them?
I did, I submitted, some suggestions to Allison. I'm prepared to make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second it. I believe I also commented on these as well and sent them back. Yes, I did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Anyone have anything they want to add? No? All right.
Make a motion to close.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody.